Katsura, as you know, in June of the first year of the Genji era, we, the Shinsengumi, made a major move at Ikedaya in Kyoto.
Yes, that incident certainly went down in history. What prompted you to take those actions?
The incident began with information from Matsudera Yoyo. He had received word that the Samono exclusionist faction in Kyoto was preparing to make a major move.
I see. Based on that information, what action did you guys take?
First, we gathered information. We discovered that Ikedaya in Sanjo Kiyamachi was the secret meeting place of the exclusionists.
How many aspirants gathered at Ikedaya, the secret meeting place?
According to our information, we were told that several dozen aspirants would gather. In reality, however, there were fewer than that. But even that number was enough of a threat.
And how did you decide to attack Ikedaya?
On the night of June 5, we, the Shinsengumi, rushed at once into Ikedaya. At the time of the raid, I gave strict orders to my men. I ordered them not to let anyone escape.
Did you encounter any resistance during that raid?
Of course, the volunteers resisted, but were countered by the trained swordsmanship of the Shinsengumi. A fierce battle unfolded there.
How many casualties were incurred in that battle?
Many of the volunteers lost their lives and were captured. We, too, sacrificed our lives for the cause of maintaining the security of Kyoto.
How do you think the incident has affected Kyoto since then?
The Ikedaya incident made the name of the Shinsengumi famous. The Shinsengumi is also proud that it was able to demonstrate the authority of the shogunate in maintaining security in Kyoto.
But didn't this hard-line approach eventually lead to growing antipathy toward the Shinsengumi and the shogunate?
That's right. It was certainly antagonistic, but I believe that under the circumstances at that point in time, it was a necessary action to protect the authority of the shogunate.
As a member of the Choshu clan, I too experienced the tension firsthand. But I also understand how much your actions affected the later upheavals of the end of the Edo period.
Katsura, you are right, there is no way to measure the impact of our actions on later history. But we did our best to protect Kyoto at that time.
Indeed, history always requires us to make the best choices at the time. Kondo, I now have a deeper understanding of how your decision shaped the Shinsengumi.
Thank you, Katsura. History can be tough sometimes, but we faced it head-on.
Kondo, the background of the Ikedaya incident was deeply related to the political upheaval at the end of the Edo period. In particular, the issue of opening the country to the outside world after the arrival of Perry was a major flashpoint.
I understand that, Katsura, but I would like to know more about the mechanism of why the upheaval led to the clash at Ikedaya.
At the time, the idea of reverence for the emperor and exclusion of foreigners was on the rise, and Kyoto was at the center of this movement. Kyoto was regarded as the place where the emperor should be protected, and many aspiring warriors gathered there.
Indeed, Kyoto is a political center. But what led the Shinsengumi to intervene?
The shogunate placed the maintenance of public order in Kyoto as its top priority. The Shinsengumi and other Roshigumi were in charge of this task, and the Shinsengumi were particularly important.
I understand that we were sent to Kyoto, but what specific information caused the Ikedaya incident?
According to our information, the expulsionists were planning a large-scale uprising. If true, this would directly affect the safety of Kyoto and, by extension, the emperor.
So, the shogunate had to prevent any small spark of fire?
That is exactly right. It is said that the aspirants who gathered at Ikedaya were key players in the plan.
But where did the information come from? How reliable was it?
This information came directly from the shogunate's intelligence network and from Matsudera Yoyo, the Kyoto Protectorate. They were sensitive to even the smallest movement in Kyoto.
So you got the information from Matsudera Yoho. So you raided Ikedaya, but how did you identify the location beforehand?
There are various theories as to why this was the case, but it is believed to have come from local secret agents and some Kyoto citizens who were cooperative with the shogunate.
Did they also utilize information from citizens? Still, the impact of that action on the Hono exclusionist faction is immeasurable.
Certainly, the raid was a great blow to us, the Suno exclusionists. But what do you think of the impact it had on the Choshu clan and other clans?
For the Choshu clan, this led to further conflict with the shogunate. But perhaps that was inevitable.
Avoiding a confrontation with the shogunate was now nearly impossible. The Ikedaya Incident made that confrontation decisive.
So that conflict led to further upheavals later on.
That is exactly right. The Ikedaya Incident was a turning point in the history of the end of the Edo period. It was a turning point in the history of the Shinsengumi, the shogunate, and for us, the emperor's exclusionist faction.
Katsura, how do you view this incident? How do you feel about it as an individual?
For me personally, there is sadness at the loss of so many of my comrades and a strong anger toward the shogunate. Still, I also believe that it was a necessary sacrifice in the course of history.
Necessary sacrifices. That's tough. But history always forces us to make such choices.
That's exactly right. The question is how we judge history and how we apply it to the future.
But still, Katsura, it's something of a privilege to be able to talk with you like this.
A relationship is a strange thing. I am grateful that we can deepen our understanding in this way, even though we are enemies.
Katsura, a lot of time has passed since the Ikedaya incident and there are many views, but what do you think about the impact of that incident on the Shinsengumi?
Indeed, the incident made the Shinsengumi famous. However, in the long run, it also made the position of the Shinsengumi and the shogunate more difficult.
That's right. The harsh methods of the Shinsengumi were both feared and resented by many of the populace.
In that sense, it may have had a temporary effect of maintaining public order, but in the long run, it further shook the authority of the shogunate.
After the incident, there were many clashes within the Shinsengumi. The fact that someone like Takasugi Shinsaku survived rather than being eliminated further ignited the anti-shogunate movement.
That is precisely what led to the later upheavals, especially the Forbidden Gate incident. The blood of Ikedaya was to call forth new blood.
At the time, the mission was solely to avenge the enemies of the shogunate. Looking back now, however, it is true that the decision made at that time led to further conflicts.
In some aspects, the existence of the Shinsengumi ultimately functioned as a questioning of the legitimacy of the shogunate. For us, the revere the emperor, expel the barbarian faction. It also became a symbol of anti-shogunate sentiment.
On that point, we certainly should have considered the repercussions of our actions.
Without that incident, the later fate of the Shinsengumi might have been different. In particular, it also served as an opportunity for hardliners such as Hijikata Toshizo to increase their influence.
Hijikata's role was significant. His strategy led the Shinsengumi to take a more hard line. This was also a factor in shaping the legend of the Shinsengumi.
The legend has influenced the culture since the Meiji era. Although he is portrayed as a hero in many works, there is much tragedy behind his story.
Certainly, the cultural impact has been significant. The story of the Shinsengumi became a symbol of the Japanese people's fascination with Bushido.
However, it is also true that the Bushido sometimes came across as too strict and created a backlash.
Yes, it is. There is much debate about what Bushido is and its interpretation.
While such rigor may have been required at the time, the philosophy needs to be re-evaluated today.
As times change, so do the required warrior characteristics. Adapting to these changes may be the true strength of a samurai.
That's right. History is always in flux and changes with the values of the moment.
We lived in the currents of that era. We did our best to make it work, but sometimes we made mistakes.
Everyone does the best they can in their time. That is the lesson of history, a truth we should pass on to future generations.
How we will be remembered in history is for the next generation to decide. Our role was to lay that foundation.
And on that foundation, new eras are built. History is in a constant state of evolution.
Katsura, I am grateful to be able to discuss history like this with you. Perspectives from different standpoints deepen our mutual understanding.
Kondo, it is always stimulating to talk with you. By looking back on history, we make new discoveries. I hope we can continue this discussion.
Katsura, every time I think back to what happened at Ikedaya, I have mixed feelings about my choice. At the time, my first priority was to follow the orders of the shogunate and protect the security of Kyoto.
Kondo, in your position, that choice might have been inevitable. However, for us, the Shinsengumi's methods were too cruel and unforgivable for us, the Suno exclusionist faction.
I understand those words. There is no denying that our actions took the lives of many noble samurai. But at that time, Kyoto was truly a powder keg. If something had not happened, there would have been even greater chaos.
Nevertheless, it can be said that the roundup at Ikedaya was not just a defense, but an attack. It created a deep rift between us that led to further confrontations later.
That may be so. Sometimes I ask myself if there was a better way. But at the time, I believed it was for the best.
Actions based on beliefs are understandable. But it is also true that many young people lost their futures as a result. Besides, we must not forget that the name of the Shinsengumi has become a symbol of fear.
Katsura, I am deeply sorry about that. How our actions had caused fear in so many people. For that, I feel a heavy responsibility as a samurai and as a human being.
Kondo, if you feel that way, that is at least progress. Reflecting on and acknowledging the past is nothing less than the first step in applying the lessons of history.
That would certainly be true. But I am also proud to be a member of the Shinsengumi. We fought to maintain order. Even if it was a mistake at times, I want to believe that it was not in vain.
The actions of the Shinsengumi may have been misleading to some, but you are right. It was necessary to act according to the situation at the time. That should be appreciated as part of history.
Thank you, Katsura. Your words always carry weight. I don't know how our actions will be appreciated by future generations, but at least we took the path we believe in.
That's right. History is always evaluated from multiple perspectives. We were a part of it, but it takes time and many perspectives to understand the full picture.
I suppose in time, our actions may be illuminated in a new light. Besides, we were able to learn something from each other's different positions, so that alone was worthwhile.
Indeed it is. Understanding and acknowledging each other's position. That is the key to drawing real lessons from past events.
Katsura, let us continue to learn from each other's history and continue our dialogue to light the way for the future.
I second that suggestion. There is no end to what we can learn from history. I hope our dialogue will help.
Katsura, what are your thoughts on the impact of the Ikedaya incident on the social situation in Kyoto?
The incident had a profound impact on society, not only in Kyoto but in Japan as a whole. It is especially important to note that it shook confidence in the shogunate among the citizenry.
Indeed, the popular reaction that our actions provoked further complicated the political situation at the time.
The Ikedaya incident also had a cultural impact. Many literary works and later plays have featured the incident as an important theme.
That's right. The actions of the Shinsengumi are often portrayed sometimes heroically and sometimes critically. This plays a very large role in shaping the image of the end of the Tokugawa shogunate.
What about the economic aspect? How do you see the impact of this incident on commercial activity in Kyoto?
The Ikedaya incident temporarily dealt a blow to commerce in Kyoto. In particular, the destabilization of public security adversely affected the activities of merchants.
This was because Kyoto was the center of political upheaval, which made commercial activities more directly susceptible.
Although security in Kyoto was temporarily stabilized after the incident, in the long run, the harsh methods of the Shinsengumi helped instill fear among the citizens.
Indeed, it is undeniable that this fear contributed to further fueling anti-shogunate sentiment.
Through this incident, the key issue was how to bridge the gap between the shogunate and its citizens while maintaining the authority of the shogunate.
In this regard, the existence of the Shinsengumi gained support from some, while it was questioned by many others.
How do you think those questions influenced the later movement toward the Meiji Restoration?
The actions of the Shinsengumi ultimately resulted in the strengthening of resistance against the shogunate. In this sense, it can be said that they were one of the factors that accelerated the flow of the restoration.
So it contributed to the growth of anti-shogunate forces. However, it also led to the birth of a new Japan.
The impact of the actions of the Shinsengumi on the later political structure of Japan is immeasurable. In particular, they influenced the transition to a more centralized political system.
Through the Ikedaya Incident, our Shinsengumi faithfully carried out the orders of the shogunate. How this will be evaluated by history will be left to later researchers.
While that assessment may change with the times, there is no doubt that our actions have had a profound impact on the history of Japan.
Katsura, today I would like to ask you directly the question I have been asking you for so long. What were you really thinking on the night of the Ikedaya Incident?
Kondo, to be honest, I was filled with fear and anger that night. I never thought that our plan would be exposed like that.
At that time, we, the Shinsengumi, were acting on the orders of the shogunate. But now that I think about it, there must have been another way.
I am a little surprised to hear you say that. Kondo, you also questioned my actions that day.
Yes, the more I look back on history, the less I believe that settlements by force have always been the best.
We all thought we did the best we could in the course of our times, but sometimes our methods were the seeds of later discord.
What about you, Katsura? Do you have any regrets after that incident?
Speaking of regrets, I wish I had sought the path of dialogue with the shogunate earlier. Not a bloody battle, but a solution through discussion.
Talking it over. Maybe that was an option.
But sometimes history is harsh. The path we have chosen has involved many sacrifices.
My heart still aches when I think of that sacrifice.
Kondo, you and I stood in different positions, but we were both concerned about the future of this country. In that respect, I believe we were of the same mind.
Yes, we did. We were both thinking and acting for this country.
And now, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to look back on the past and discuss lessons for the future in this way.
Indeed, it is a precious time to think about what we should pass on to future generations.
I don't know how our actions will be evaluated by future generations, but I want to convey the importance of facing history with integrity.
History sometimes cuts us apart, but sometimes leads us to reconciliation. I hope this dialogue today will serve as an example of that.
That's exactly right. It is our task to learn from the history of conflict and see the value of reconciliation.
Katsura, through today's dialogue, I was able to look at many things in a new light. I thank you.
Kondo, your discussions with me are always inspiring. I would like to continue to cherish our friendship that transcends time.
Thank you, dear readers, for taking this long journey with us.
We hope that our story will throw some light on your view of history. Thank you very much.